Franklin, Tennessee is one of Tennessee's most picturesque little towns, full of history. And one of its most famous landmarks is the Carnton Plantation, which, believe it or not, was in danger of destruction until recently. Susan Watson takes a tour of the historic home with one of its most devoted supporters.
In the stillness between groups of tourists, cicadas hum and bees buzz in the garden, and it's easy to imagine that the year is 1864, summer 143 years ago, just months before the event that took thousands of lives here and changed thousands more forever.
This is an extraordinary story. This is really a story of how we stopped being Ohioans and Tennesseans and Floridians and Californians and became Americans. And it seemed that here at Franklin something really important had happened. And it seemed that here at Carnton that world changed. You know, in the years after the Civil War, it was often called the morgue of the Confederacy. There are a lot of places that advertise it there where the Old South lives, but here at Carnton, here in Franklin, is where the Old South died.
Robert Hicks is a longtime board member of the historic Carnton Plantation Association. He penned the historic novel Widow of the South, based on Carrie McGavock, Carnton, and the Battle of Franklin. Having reached number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list, the book has garnered international interest in Carnton's place in history.
You know, the story of Carnton before the war is much like the story of any other American family. Randall McGavock built a house in the 1820s. Eventually he passed away. He had been mayor of Nashville, and it was left to his son John. John marries his first cousin once removed, Carrie Winder of Louisiana. Basically, it was the life that would have been lived by any comfortable Middle Tennessee family before the war.
Even before the war, death was no stranger to the McGavocks. During the 19th century, the childhood mortality rates were over 50%. John and Carrie suffered the loss of 3 of their 5 children.
This is the master bedroom, and when we were trying to put it back together, Gail Winkler out of Philadelphia, who'd done our furniture plan, said that the portrait of the dead children should hang here. It should be the last thing you would have seen at night. The first thing you would have seen in the morning. I mean, the 19th century had their almost legitimate ways, I think, of trying to deal with death and loss.
During the war, life at Carnton went on as normally as possible. But as the 2 opposing armies prepared to clash in Franklin, Carnton was chosen as the site of the field hospital for the Confederates. By 4 o'clock on the afternoon of November 30th, 1864, as the battle began, the McGavock household was bracing itself for what was to come. But they could not have imagined that they were about to witness the aftermath of 5 of the bloodiest hours of the Civil War. The first of the wounded were put on the sofas and beds, and then threw out the house until it could hold no more. Then the wounded and dead filled the yard. When the battle ended, there were 9,500 casualties in a town of 2,500 living.
This was Winder's bedroom, the youngest of the surviving children. But during that night, this became the main surgical unit of the house. And the telltale sign of that, we have these blood stains, and the surgeon is standing there. He has a rubber apron on, and as the blood comes down, it just pretty much collects around him. It's kind of amazing to have all these DNA mixed together right here in front of us.
The Union dead were taken to national cemeteries in Murfreesboro and Nashville. The Confederates were buried where they fell. In the spring of 1866, John McGavock set aside 2 acres of land, and the dead were then disinterred and removed to the McGavock Cemetery. Carrie McGavick carefully recorded each name in a leather-bound book. She visited the cemetery every day, carrying the journal with her until her death in 1905.
All of those boys, every one of them, had now become McGavicks. And so, as she mourned over her own children she had lost, she mourned over these boys for the remainder of her life. I only met one person who actually knew her. It was a great niece. She was about 10 years old when Carrie died. She told me that her last words, with her eyes closed, surrounded by her family, were, "Oh, how beautiful." And her great niece said, "I would like to believe that she not only was looking into her future at that moment, but that she was looking into ours. That she would know that this cemetery that she had cared for those 39 years, this place that had meant so much to her, this city of the dead, would not be lost, would not be forgotten." So I hope she's pleased.